Hello everyone, my name is Yoshimitsu, and welcome to the Japanese lore of Dark Souls. As the title implies, I'll be referring to the original Japanese text over the translated English text. If there are any discrepancies between the versions, I will always take what the original Japanese states as fact. I take this approach as many lore elements have been lost due to translation, and I'm hoping that I can bring some answers to long debated and unanswered lore questions, as well as offer a few of my own theories as well. Let's begin. In this video, I would like to present this theory. The Primordial Serpents are born from the Pygmy royalty of the Ringed City. This is the theory that I present. I will be jumping between seemingly unrelated characters and topics in order to explain and back up this theory. First, in the world of Dark Souls, we can observe 10 primordial serpents in existence. 2 of the serpents are named, and 8 serpents are not named. The 2 named serpents are Kingseeker Frampt and Darkstalker Kaathe. Darkstalker Kaathe is the serpent that we can encounter within the abyss after defeating the 4 kings of New Londo. His name in Japanese is闇撫でのカアス. Yami translates to dark, Nade translates to stroke or to caress or to pet. Therefore, Kaathe could be called Dark Petter Kaathe, Dark Caresser Kaathe, or something like that. Kingseeker Frampt's name in Japanese is王の探索者. O translates to king, and Tansakusha translates to searcher. Therefore, Kingseeker Frampt makes sense as a translation for王の探索者. Kingseeker Frampt wants the fire to be linked so the Age of Fire can be preserved. Darkstalker Kaathe wants the fire to fade so the Dark Lord may rise. I assume the 8 other serpents who can be seen in the Dark Lord ending also wish for the fire to fade, or at the minimum, do not want to link the first flame. I believe these primordial serpents are something similar to the pus of man, so I'll explain. The pus of man are enemies that can be found within the high walls of Lothric, and they're weak to fire and resistant to the dark. The pus of man is Shito no Umi in Japanese. Shito is human, and Umi is pus. And this pus is a form of the abyss. The follower torch reads, "Some forms of the abyss manifest as pus within the body, treated from ancient times with fire." We also know the abyss is created from humanity. The Soul of Manus reads, "Soul of Manus, father of the abyss. This extraordinary soul is a viscous, lukewarm lump of gentle humanity. Ancient Manus was clearly once human, but he became the father of the abyss after his humanity went wild, eternally seeking his precious broken pendant." Based on this information, the pus of man are likely humans whose humanity had gone wild. And this begs the question, what is humanity? Humanity reads, "This black sprite is called humanity, but little is known about its true nature." If the soul is the source of all life, then what distinguishes the humanity we hold within ourselves? In the Game no Shokkaku interview, Mr. Miyazaki states this when asked about the furtive pygmy. "The furtive pygmy is the ancestor of humans. The pygmy found the dark soul, the king soul, and humanity are shards of that. The nameless pygmy is the ancestor of humans, and as descendants, every human has a shard of the soul. Therefore, humanity are shards of the dark soul found by the furtive pygmy." And in this interview, the furtive pygmy is called Namonai Shojin in Japanese. Namonai is nameless, and Shojin translates to pygmy. In the opening for Dark Souls 1, the furtive pygmy so easily forgotten is Daremo shiranu Shojin. Daremo shiranu translates to no one knows of, and Shojin is Pygmy. Therefore, the Pygmy who found the Dark Soul had no name, and no one knew of his existence. Prior to Dark Souls 3, the furtive Pygmy was also the only confirmed Pygmy in existence. But with Dark Souls 3, we were introduced to a number of new Pygmies. The first is Ludleth. When Ludleth states, "Now heed this little warning from this little lord," little lord is actually Shojin in Japanese, which is the same term used for the furtive Pygmy in Japanese. Therefore, Ludleth should be stating, "Now, heed this little warning from this Pygmy." The Pygmy Lords of the Ringed City also use the same term Pygmy, or Shojin, and these Pygmy Lords, who are also called Pygmy Royalty, are likely Pygmies who received shards of the Dark Soul from the furtive Pygmy. The Blood of the Dark Soul reads, "When Gale came upon the Pygmy Lords, he discovered that their blood had long ago dried, and so consumed the Dark Soul." The Pygmy Lords are called Shojin no O in Japanese. Shojin again is Pygmy, O is King. Therefore, the Pygmy Lords, or Pygmy Royalty, really should be called Pygmy Kings. And these Pygmy Kings and their thrones can be found in the Ringed City. In the final area we battle Gale, there are 8 thrones, and 8 Pygmy Kings. When comparing these 8 thrones, and the throne that Ludleth sits upon, to me they look very similar to each other, and as Ludleth directly calls himself a Pygmy, I believe this indicates Ludleth could have been a member of the Pygmy Royalty. Ludleth, the Pygmy, also introduces himself as Ludleth of Kurland. If Ludleth was a member of the Pygmy Royalty, this could indicate the Ringed City and Kurland could be the same place. The Ringed City, I believe, is likely the future of what Kurland could look like, and its name was likely lost in time. In an interview on Dengeki PlayStation Volume 636, Mr. Miyazaki states this: "The second DLC takes place further into the future from the main Dark Souls 3 game, and the world is much more ruined. Something that existed in the era of the main Dark Souls 3 game, but is lost in the era of the second DLC, is names. I believe the name, Kurland, was lost in the future, and the city had eventually become known as the Ringed City. And the knights who guard the Ringed City are ancient humans. The Ringed Knight armor reads, "Malformed black armor of the Ringed Knights. The armor of early men was forged in the abyss, and betrays a smidgen of life." The term early men is furui hito in Japanese. Furui translates to ancient, and hito translates to human. And this term furui hito is actually used for someone else in the series, and that someone else is Manus. Elizabeth refers to Manus as a horrifying primeval human. Primeval human is translated from furui hito in Japanese. Again, the same term, furui hito, is used for the Ringed Knights of the Ringed City. Both Manus and the Ringed City Knights are furui hito, ancient humans. Humans of this current era are called imabito in Japanese. Ima translates to now or current, and hito translates to human. The broken pendant translates imabito as men of this time. And based on the information, I believe the evolution of the human race in the world of Dark Souls likely went from the furtive Pygmy, to the Pygmies, to ancient humans, to the men of this time. And as Mr. Miyazaki has stated in his Game no Shokutaku interview, every human contains a shard of the Dark Soul, and therefore every human holds a piece of humanity within them. And if the humanity goes wild in a man of current time, imabito, I believe they become something similar to the pus of man. And if humanity goes wild in an ancient human, furui hito, I theorize effects similar to Manus will occur. Although the Ring Knights are also ancient human, Furuihito, their humanity did not go wild. The difference between Manus and the Ring City Knights is the Ring City Knights were branded. The Ring Knight spear reads, Black spear wielded by the Ring Knights. The arms of early men were forged in the abyss and betray a smidgen of life. For this reason, the gods cast a seal of fire upon these spears and those who possess them. Manus, however, does not have the seal of fire placed on him. When the humanity of Manus went wild, the seal of fire was not present to burn the humanity that kept seeping out of Manus. The reason why the humanity of Manus went wild is due to the Ulasil residence. And according to Hawkeye Go, I suspect thou hast taken a gander at it, but the dark of the abyss, which swallowed poor Artorius, threatens to devour our entire land of Ulasil. It seems that this dire fate is unavoidable, but seduced by a dark serpent or no, they awoke that thing themselves and drove it mad. One's demise is always one's own making. Although Go does not directly state it, the dark serpent that seduced Ulasil is Kaathe. The term dark serpent is Yami-no-hibi in Japanese. This is the same term used by Ingvard when describing Kaathe in Japanese. Ingvard states, Long ago, the four kings were powerful men, only their hearts were weak. When an evil serpent dangled the art of life drain before them, they were unable to resist and became pawns of evil. The serpent who seduced the four kings of New Londo is Darkstalker Kaathe, and Ingvard calls Kaathe Yami-no-hibi in Japanese, the same term Go uses. The dark serpent that seduced Ulasil is Darkstalker Kaathe, a primordial serpent. But primordial serpents are not primordial. These serpents are called Sekai no Hibi in Japanese. Sekai translates to world. Hibi translates to either serpent or snake. Kaathe and Frampt are world serpents, not primordial serpents. In the world of Dark Souls, aside from the translated name Primordial Serpent, there isn't any proof indicating the world serpents were around from the primordial ages. And in the Ringed City, we can even find these statues of them, and these statues even have limbs, which begs one to question if these are even serpents at all. And when you look at this statue a little bit more closely, it almost looks like the world serpents have skin that's similar to the pus of man. And the pus of man is likely created when the humanity goes wild within men of this time. And when humanity goes wild with an ancient human, the abyss is created. So then what would happen if the humanity of the Shoujing, the Pygmy Lords, went wild? This is where I theorize that the primordial serpents or the world serpents are born. Both Ludleth and Frampt have much more in common with each other than meets the eye. When you killed Ludleth, the skull ring can be obtained. It reads, One of Portland's transposed wonders, derived from a soul of a soul feeder, easier to be detected by enemies. The soul feeder was a beast that insatiably absorbed souls to feed its own power. Even after its accursed corpse was burned, it is said the pungent stench of souls left the air permanently stained. I believe this soul feeder is Frampt. The picture that is depicted on the skull ring to me looks like it could be the skull of a primordial serpent. Both Ludleth and Frampt use a specific term called王の探索者. Ludleth translates王の探索者as Seeker of Lords and refers to the unkindled by this term. Frampt uses 王の探索者 and uses it for his own name, Frampt, the Kingseeker. The crestfallen warrior also complains about the strong stench that Frampt gives off. The soul feeder also has a pungent stench of souls. and Frampt can also be given an infinite number of souls to feed on, and the Soul Feeder absorbs souls to feed its own power. As a side note, the price that Frampt gives back in souls when you feed him items has a specific reason. Mr. Miyazaki has stated that Frampt chooses the price based on his personal preference of taste for each item. Therefore, to Frampt, dung pie tastes better than the soul of Smo. Going back to what I stated earlier, world serpents are born from the humanity going wild within the Pygmies. I believe Frampt was born from the humanity of Ludleth. Frampt is the only serpent who supports linking the First Flame, as he guides the undead champion to do so. Ludleth also supports linking the First Flame, as he directly states he is a Lord of Cinder. The 8 unnamed world serpents in the Dark Lord ending are from the 8 Pygmy royalty of the Ringed City. And Kaathe is from the Pygmy Lord at the entrance of the Ringed City, as they both wish for the fire to fade. 10 Pygmies and 10 world serpents, born from their humanities. Thanks for watching, everyone, and until we meet again in the next lore video, don't you dare go hollow.